guys, welcome back to The Secret Turnabout Act 2. In the last episode we did Emma's cross-examination, and today we're going to be cross-examining our client, the weird ghost guy, who just happens to be a judge of the actual court. Not the judge, of course, because he wouldn't hurt a fly, and no one would believe a case like that. Will the defendant please state his name and occupation for the record?
Hercule Leary, presiding judge of courtroom number 1.
You do understand the situation, right, Judge Leary? This court will not look down on you for refusing to testify. The decision is yours.
A man was killed in my good friend's chambers, Your Honour. I only ever met the victim in court. I did not personally know him. However, I do know this. He did not deserve to die. If my testimony can truly get to the bottom of what happened, I will testify. Besides, I'm confident in my innocence and my lawyer's abilities. Well, Judge Erie, we gave up the easy win for the pursuit of the truth. I can only hope it's worth it.
Oh, by the way, I chatted between episodes. If you do say, yeah, I accept his testimony, then you end up making the same deal anyway, so it doesn't really change much. Very well then, Judge Huey. Let's hear your side of the story. Please explain to us what happened that day, from your point of view.
Very well. On the day of the murder, I was in my chambers, busy filing some paperwork. With the trial ending early, I was looking forward to having some extra free time to get work done. Suddenly a loud thump came from the neighbouring judge's chambers. I quickly jumped to my feet and made my way to the bookcase passage, stepping through. That's when I saw the victim on the floor dead, and I screamed for help.
I see. Thank you for your testimony, Judge Erie. Though I am curious to ask how this changes matters.
The prosecution still holds true to the claim the defendant has enough strength to break the defendant's neck during their struggles. Somewhere within the cross-examination, I believe the truth will come to light.
Yeah, so somewhere there has to be some indication of if the defendant is actually strong. I can only hope the answer will help guide us to the real truth.
You realise, of course, that if this cross-examination reveals that the defendant is not actually as strong as the prosecution claims he is, this could mean the end of your case, understood?
I'm willing to accept the risk, Your Honour.
The case against Judge Erie still holds water unless I can prove my point anyways. Edgeworth and I are both taking a risk on this testimony. I can only hope that what I find won't further damage my case.
Well, time to press every statement and poll the jury on every statement.
Let's go. Around what time did you enter your chambers? It doesn't take long to travel between my courtroom and my chambers. I wasn't exactly paying attention to the time I entered my chambers, but it couldn't have been more than 5 minutes after I declared a verdict that day. The trial ended at 12:25. That means he was in his chambers by 12:30. In other words, he was in his chambers around the time of murder. I thought I told you to stop it with that last episode.
You in this whole courtroom, but it's not going to stop me. I see the defence has reached the same conclusion I have. I'm sure we're well aware that what the defendant has described very much fits into the time frame of the murder. In other words, the defendant lacks an alibi.
When has anyone ever had an alibi in this universe? Well, one has not been proven to be false anyway. Well, I mean, the culprit of 6-2 had one, but that was a remote murder, so it didn't even make a difference.
Indeed, that's something that has been well established by this point. But this testimony all but confirms it.
I'm not going to lie and say I wasn't there. All I can do is continue to maintain my innocence.
It's true that I was in my chambers around the time the crime was committed. However, I did not see Corey Rupture that day until after he was already dead. If you wish to prove otherwise, then the burden is on you, Mr. Edgeworth. I'm well aware of the situation, Judge Erie. However, you were the only one with access to the scene of the crime at the time of the murder. That, in and of itself, is rather damning evidence.
Hang on, Mr. Edgeworth. There's one problem with that line of logic. The defendant never saw Corey Rupture that day till after he was already dead. How did the victim get into the crime scene that day if there was no other way in?
I hope your argument isn't solely reliant on the defendant's word, Mr. Justice. There is a perfectly reasonable explanation for how the victim got into the crime scene. Of course, his body was dragged there by the defendant after the murder.
Objection.
Wow. It's quite a bit different from how I'm voicing him, but hey ho.
I already told you, I've never saw the victim that day. Why didn't none of you listen to me?
Order! Judge Erie, control your outbursts. The prosecution has already provided solid evidence for their case. If the defense wishes to overturn that case, they will need evidence of their own.
Evidence that I lack, of course.
Just calm yourself, Judge Erie, give your testimony. There will be no need to there'll be no need to worry if you're telling this court the truth.
Just to reiterate, the trial was over with so quickly because...
I'm trying to give, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm trying to give Apollo like a raspy voice because that's canonically what he's supposed to sound like because the amount of time he practices his chords to steal. So yeah, and it distinguishes him from my other main character voice, which I've this time already given to Aiden Gambit.
The victim was the defense assigned to this case, yet he never showed up to the trial. What exactly was going on in your thoughts when this happened?
Well, I was obviously not very pleased with Mr. Rupture, that's for sure.
When you had chosen to represent a person in court,
it's a tremendous duty. That person is taking a risk by putting their life in your hands. Quite an important responsibility. It's not just something you can go back on whenever you please.
Indeed, your anger is quite understandable, Judge Erie. To shirk one's responsibilities like that is rather unacceptable. Of course, that's exactly what Mr. Rupture did.
After seeing the body, however, my attitude changed. Suddenly everything that happened that day started to make sense. I realised that to be the reason why I never showed up to court.
Have you already forgotten, Judge Erie? There's already been evidence presented to the court that disproves what you're saying.
Right, the autopsy report.
Precisely. The autopsy report states that the victim died at least 5 minutes after the end of the trial.
Mr. Edgeworth, what are you talking about leases for? You do lease?
Well, I mean, I lease things out to other people, of course. I don't lease myself. In other words, the reason the victim didn't show up is not because he was dead.
I don't know anything about his real reasons for abandoning his client. All I know is what was going through my mind at the time. If I turned out to be wrong, then he better have had a damn good reason for what he did.
Mr. Rupture's reason for not appearing in court that day. If it's not because of his death, then I just have no idea what the real reason is.
Still, I can't shake the feeling there's something more to the story. Did Corey Rupture really abandon his client on the day of the murder? Or was there something else that caused it?
He was already taken prisoner or something at the time.
In any event, let us return our attention to the defendant's testimony. What happened while you were in your office, Judge Erie?
A loud thump? What exactly was the thump you heard? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Maybe it was aliens. Or ghosts. Or zombies. Yeah, I was waiting for that one. It's not still in the courthouse, is it? What if it comes this way? I don't want to be in my zombies, Mr. Justice.
Judge Erie, please calm down.
Whatever it is you heard, I'm sure there's a perfectly logical explanation for it. Though what that explanation is, I'm not quite sure. Jude Erie, I am well aware of your beliefs. What did you call me, lad? However, I must agree with what the defense is saying. The sound you heard could have been caused by any number of things. Perhaps even one's own mind.
Objection.
If you're implying that I'm going crazy, then you can forget it. I know what I heard that day was real. It was merely a suggestion, of course.
And at this rate, a very likely suggestion.
I know what I heard. I'm not going senile. Tell him, Mr. Justice. Tell him what I heard that day. Hey, I don't know the answer. I don't the answer to that one either.
But it seems we are right back where we started. We are all still none the wiser about the sounds the defendant heard. What the sound the defendant heard that day was.
Glad to know that was a complete waste of time. Still, I don't think I'll be able to get my client off the hook until I know what he heard. Which, at this rate, could just turn out to be that a mouse knocked over a book. In any case, I suggest we return to the matter at hand. Jerry, what did you do after you heard the loud thud from the crime scene? Have you used the passageway before, Judge Jerry? I can't say I've ever really had need of it before. That said, I did test it out before once, when I first became a judge. It was when I first learned how it actually worked. Oh, now you've got me curious. How exactly does the bookcase passageway work? Ah, well, it's actually quite simple, young Justice. There's a button near the top that unlatches the lock. From there, you're free to pull it open. That's actually very simple. Indeed, the biggest challenge in using the bookcase passage is simply knowing it's there. Well, knowing that, just about anybody could have entered the crime scene that day.
Really? Please explain, defense.
Consider the following, Your Honor. We still don't know how the killer and the victim got inside the crime scene that day. When the defendant entered the room, the victim was already dead, meaning he had already entered the room by that time. Unfortunately, I couldn't let that claim slide. Edgeworth, I should have known he'd have an objection ready. If I understand correctly, the defense is claiming the following. That the victim was already inside the neighbouring chambers when the crime was committed, and that he entered through the bookcase passageway to do so. Unfortunately, there is a gaping hole in the defense's theory.
I assume you mean that there was no opportunity to do so?
Precisely. Recall the events that played out that day. The defendant oversaw a trial on the day of the murder. This trial ended at 12:25 PM, after which point the defendant returned to his chambers. The earliest point at which the murder occurred was at 12:30 PM. In other words, there was no opportunity to sneak into the neighbouring chambers at all. The only way the victim could have entered the chambers was if he was brought in by Judge Erie. Ugh.
Order, order!
Ugh. I can't give up this line of reasoning. I need to prove that the victim entered through the bookcase passage, but I don't think I have enough information to make it work. Maybe I need to revisit this point later on once I've gathered the necessary clues.
No then, let us return to the matter at hand. Judge Erie, what did you find when you went through the bookcase passage?
Right, make a note of that, guys. We have to press...
I quickly jumped to my feet.
once we have more information. Granted, we'll have pressed all these statements and gone through polling all the jury members by the time we get to that point, so probably won't remember. I'll try to.
So, the victim was already dead when you entered the room? Yeah, there's no mistaking it. I didn't bother trying to check his pulse. I just screamed as loud as I could. But Mr. Edgeworth and the others soon came and confirmed it. And of course, the autopsy report confirms the victim died instantly.
So if he really didn't touch the body, the crime had to have happened before he entered. Well, of course, we only have the defendant's word to go off of. There's no evidence to back up what he's saying. He's right, of course. I believe Jujiri's account of the events. What I lack is evidence. Not to mention, there is a hole in the defendant's explanation. A hole? Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that the defendant's account is true. There is something he should have heard that he did not. You mean, the moment of the murder? The defendant would have been right next to the crime scene at the time of the murder. He should have heard the fight between the killer and the victim. Yet, he does not claim to have heard any such thing. I wish I knew what to tell you. It's true. I not hear a fight going on next door. Trust me, that part has me just as stumped as you guys. A fight between the killer and the victim he should have heard but didn't. Probably down here. The mystery just goes deeper and deeper. I'm not going to lie just to make me story sound any more credible. I'm going to be honest when there's something I'm not sure how to explain. But figuring out how it makes sense is your job, Mr. Justice. And the police, don't forget them. In any case, the point stands that the defendant can't explain the holes in his testimony. Until those holes are addressed, suspicion will remain upon him. The problem with Judge Aries' testimony is fairly obvious, I feel. He claims to have not seen the victim at all that day. And yet the only way for the victim to get to the crime scene was through his chambers. If the defendant was in his chambers, then he should have seen the victim at some point. And yet, he still sticks to his guns. If I had more clues, I could try and explain away this inconsistency. At times like these, maybe I should see what the jury has to say. If they can provide me with more clues, I can press the issue further. Maybe I should look through the court record and see what they're experts in. I'm sure one of them can use their expertise on one of these statements. Well, we're going to use all their expertise on all of them, actually. And this is the start of it again, so... Your Honour, I would like to hear what the jury thinks about this statement.
Very well, Mr. Wright, if you would, please.
Sure thing, Your Honour. What do you guys think?
Well, that settles it, doesn't it? He was at the crime scene at the time of the murder. Who else could it be?
Well, hang on a bit. There seems to be a bit more to the story, I think.
But don't tell me you actually believe the defendant was doing paperwork at the time.
Wait, it says Juror 6, but why is it... I was confused for a second. I saw Juror 6 before I looked at this.
Bah! Don't tell me you actually believe the defendant was doing paperwork at the time. He had to be meeting with the victim. You're not seriously going to take his word for it, are you?
Yeah, it is a bit strange. Jury 4 by his paperwork explanation with no proof.
Juror 4.
He seems to be willing to accept the idea that the defendant really was doing paperwork at the time. Ah, well, I have a good reason to believe him.
We need the information about you in the court record,
Courthouse clerk.
It seems as though you work here at the courthouse. Would that have something to do with the reason you trust the defendant?
Actually, yes. That is the reason. I've read through some of Judge Aries' reports before. The handwriting can be a bit scraggly, but he's usually good at getting them in on time.
Sorry about the handwriting. I tend to rush when there's too much paperwork to be done.
In any case, Judge Aries doing the paperwork after the trial does sound like a reasonable excuse. In which case, he didn't have time to meet up with the victim.
Ah, poppycock! And how did the victim get into the crime scene?
Juror 2 is quite right. I wish I didn't have to say that, but I do. Mr. Rumpshaw would have had to have entered the crime scene through the bookcase passage. There's no way he could have done that without attracting the defendant's attention. Well, maybe he really did find a way to go through the front door. That would be the most logical assumption.
Unfortunately, that's an impossibility. It's standard protocol for judges to lock the chambers when they're not using them.
Actually, my brother can forget that sometimes, so...
Ah, shut up, you. I don't think Oji would just forget about this when he went to trial.
Indeed, I can assure you that the door was still locked when we arrived at the scene. In fact, his Honor fumbled with his keys for a bit to get the door open.
That does sound like my brother.
There was no... I'm the wrong voice there. There was no way to enter the room through the wrong door. Through the front door. The only way to enter the room was through other means. Indeed, but you wouldn't make a mistake like forgetting to lock the door. Especially because, unlike me, he doesn't really have an excuse. So we really do have a locked room mystery on our hands? How exciting! We can hardly call it a mystery when the answer has already been given to you, huh? The only one with access to the crime scene was the defendant. That's all she wrote. I wonder if that's really true. I can't help but feel like somebody said something just now that bugged me. What do I do? Should I raise an objection? I don't recall. But I can come back to that one. I'm sure it was just my imagination. But I don't raise too much of a fuss over it.
No then, if that will be all, I ask that Judge Eerie continue his testimony.
Actually, what am I saying? One of them said something about an excuse. Judge Eerie. I didn't miss that per se, I just didn't clock until now they weren't talking about something the jury was saying. Why are you staring at me like that? I can't help but feel like something you said just now was very odd. Indeed, Uji wouldn't make a mistake like forgetting to lock the door. Especially because, unlike me, he doesn't really have an excuse. Unlike me, he doesn't really have an excuse? What exactly is this excuse you're talking about? Ah, well, it's a bit embarrassing, really. It sort of happened a week ago, you see. I was trying to get into my chambers, and my key was being finicky. Well, I jiggled and struggled with the doorknob for a bit, and... well, I sort of ended up ripping the door open by accident. You what? Yeah, it really did a number on the lock, too. I really don't know my own strength sometimes. I still have yet to get the lock replaced. But that's true, then. Well, I believe this puts one question to rest at least. The defense stated earlier the defendant was strong enough to have been able to snap the victim's neck by strangling him with a rope. However, from the testimony we just heard, the defendant does indeed have that strength. In other words, the prosecution's theory is not out of the realm of possibility. Yeah. But I bet this information will be used when we press that other statement again.
Order! Order!
I can't blame her for writing to that one. I was thinking of a way to turn this around quick. Edgeworth may have learned new information, but so did I. For the past week, the lock on the door to the defendant's chambers has been broken. I wonder if there's any way I can use this new info. In any case, with the prosecution's point thoroughly proven, I suggest we return to the cross-examination.
Get going, Jordy.
Go on.
If I may ask, what kind of work we doing with your free time, Judge Eerie?
Ah, well, not every part of a judge's duty is spent in the courtroom. Whenever a trial wraps up, we must also do the appropriate paperwork regarding the trial's verdict and sentence. However, sometimes that paperwork can pile up far too quickly to handle.
If I may be so bold, I would suggest keeping up with your work better, Judge Eerie.
Yeah. Poor Judge Eerie. He really is the least popular judge. Also, between episodes, I was wondering if this guy might be Will Powers, and I checked the ages, and the ages line up because he's 1 year younger than Miles Edgeworth in the first game. So, because he wants to hide his face, which he said he does as well. So I'll try and give him more of a Will Powers voice now. I'm just imagining all that paperwork piling up. What a nightmare.
Shut up and pay attention, you big baby.
Hold on, if you have to do paperwork every time a trial gets concluded, wouldn't that mean you'd have to do paperwork about the trial that concluded that morning? Hey, yeah, that's right. His friend really did file the paperwork for that day's trial. It'll be proof that my client is telling the truth.
Bah, so what? The guy was filing paperwork. What does that prove?
Really, think about it for 1 second. If my client was filing paperwork that morning, he'd be too busy to go commit murder. After all, I imagine typing up that paperwork would take a long while. Not to mention, paperwork about that day's trial would prove when he did it too. In other words, that paperwork would give my client a solid alibi for the crime. No, I do not wish to indulge in the defence's blatant grasping at straws. I must interrupt. The prosecution has already looked into this matter. We found no paperwork of that kind on the defendant's desk.
Huh? Sorry, son. I was waiting to hear from Rupture before I started on that paperwork. I first wanted to hear from him why he never showed up to court that day. Of course, now we'll never know the real reason.
Damn it, I thought I had something. Naturally, the prosecution has been very thorough about searching into this matter. If there was even a slim chance of something leading to the defendant having an alibi, we would have already discovered it. Wow, I've heard so much about Mr. Edgeworth's talents to actually see them in action. He still doesn't hold a candle to how dreamy Aiden is. I don't know, I think they're both pretty cool. I'd love to see them duke it out one day. Ha, that would be a completely one-sided battle. I'm inclined to agree, but not for the reason you think.
This matter fully explored, I must return to the testimony. You were in your chambers at the time of the murder. What happened next?
Your Honor, I would like to hear what the jury thinks about this statement.
Very well, Mr. Wright, if you would, please.
Yeah, get on with it.
I'm curious, Judge Erie. What exactly did this thump sound like?
It sounded like... It sounded like a loud thump.
How extremely descriptive.
Yeah, hey, I'm trying my best, okay? I really don't know how else to describe it except it sounded like something falling over.
Something falling over? You don't think it could have been the victim being attacked, do you? No, I don't think so. I know a thing or two about fights, having done some fight scenes. I can say from experience that with the scuffle that happened between the victim and killer would have resulted in a lot more than just one lousy thump. Meaning that whatever caused the noise is still a mystery. Still, I wonder if it's not entirely out of the question that the victim did cause the noise. Until we know what went on in that room, we can't know for certain.
In any event, I do not believe going on about this point will get us anywhere. Defendant, please tell us what happened after you heard the noise that day.
Get the jury going.
Get the jury going.
Get the jury... Oh, I'm supposed to do that. Get going, Jordan.
Bah! Why'd you immediately jump to using the bookcase passage?
Look, I panicked, okay? I heard a loud noise, and I became concerned about Udgy. I thought he fell over and couldn't get up, or
the ghosts have gone to him.
I think you need worry on that second one.
You still could have knocked on the door to make sure. Your first thought was to invade his privacy. For shame.
Indeed, that your first thought was the bookcase passage is rather peculiar. It was almost as if you knew the main doors would be locked.
That's not it at all. Don't look at me like that.
Mr. Edgeworth, I must ask you to stop making my client so uncomfortable. Even if you could stand to stop acting so suspicious. My apologies. However, I still believe that this question merits an answer. I wasn't concerned with anything else in the moment. What do you mean? Oji is the only person who really takes me seriously anymore. He truly is the only friend I have left, I think. The only thing going on in my mind was how to reach him as fast as possible. Never even occurred to me that I might be infringing on his privacy. Bah! So you care about your friend's privacy, is that it? No offense, Juror 2, but I'd argue the fact that there had been a murder takes precedent. Oh, so just because a guy dies, that means we have to throw out all decency, huh? How would you like it if I stuck into your house during a murder, huh? That depends on if the guy was literally dying on my floor.
I think it might be in everyone's best interest to end this line of questioning.
Please do, Your Honor.
Yes, well, Tajiri, please describe what you saw in my brother's chambers.
Jury, you know what to do.
Do they? Mr. Wright?
Yeah, I think they know what to do.
I still find it hard to believe that manly defendant made that shrill scream.
I believe it. Trust me, I believe it.
Not to the point, however. How did seeing the victim's body make you feel?
I was completely frightened. I don't know what I was meant to find inside of these chambers. But it certainly wasn't a dead body. Poppycock, he's obviously lying through his teeth. He knew full well he'd find a dead body because he put it there himself. No, I swear, I didn't kill him. And yet it's the conclusion the evidence points to. Evidence that the defense has yet to dispute.
Calm down, son. Nothing is set in stone yet.
He's right. The defense can explain where the dead body came from. I just need a bit more time. Then hurry it up. I don't have all day. Let's really think about the facts. The victim was killed sometime between 12:30 p.m. and 12:50 p.m. Somehow, at some point, the victim and the killer got in the crime scene that day. The real question is, was the victim still alive when he entered the room? If I believe that Jojiri's story, then the answer has to be yes. So, if I can prove that...
I suggest you find the answer soon. Some of us are getting impatient.
Will do, Juror 6. I should have said it more like, some of us are getting impatient. I'm kind of... Juror 6 is one of the voices I'm finding the hardest to get down. Like,
don't want to make him sound a little more like this. Maybe this is the way to go for him. I want to have a bit of oldness in the voice, but also a bit to differentiate myself from the judge, a bit of whimsy. And for this older woman, I kind of just want to make her different from him as well, but sound, you know, a bit caring.
He claims not to have seen the victim at all that day. And the only way for the victim to get to the crime scene was through his chambers. If the defendant was in his chambers, he should have seen the victim at some point. And yet he still sticks to his guns. If I had more clues, I could try and explain away the inconsistency. I've read this before. No, I don't remember which thing when I was went to press. Not this one, this one. It might have been that one. I think it was this one. You dear.
Objection.
Oh no, it wasn't this one then. this one? I think it's this one. Now we know that he's wrong on this. Wait a minute. That clue I gathered from before. I wonder, would it be useful here? What do I do? Should I raise an objection? Nah, I'm gonna just leave it. That bit of information will never come in handy. Hold on just 1 second, Mr. Edgeworth. There's one big thing you seem to have forgotten. Something I've forgotten? There was something said during the cross-examination that will explain what I mean. Please pay attention to what the defendant said earlier. It sort of happened a week ago, you see. I was trying to get into me chambers, and my key was being finicky. Well, I jiggled and struggled with the doorknob for a bit, and... well, I sort of ended up ripping the door open by accident. You what? Yeah, it really did a number on the lock, too. I really don't know my own strength sometimes. I still have yet to get the lock replaced. I still have yet to get the lock... wrong voice again. I still have yet to get the lock replaced. And this one little detail changed everything.
How so, defense?
The prosecution claims the victim had no opportunity to sneak into the crime scene. However, we now know that's not true. The perfect opportunity had already presented itself. An opportunity the defendant himself created. What? Me?
Order! Your argument intrigues me, Mr. Justice. Please elaborate.
Of course, Your Honor. Let's consider the facts. A week ago, the defendant broke the lock on his doors by accident. Yeah, that was rather clumsy of me. The important part is the implications it creates. The lock still has yet to be replaced. That means anyone could have entered the defendant's chambers on that day.
I think I see where you're going with this. From there, they could have used the bookcase passage to enter the crime scene.
Precisely, Your Honor. I believe this is how the victim entered the crime scene that day. On that day, the victim did not show up to court to defend his client. The real reason why is because he was already at the crime scene that day. He snuck into the defendant's chambers at some point during the trial, and then he entered through the bookcase passage to the neighbouring chambers. In other words, it's entirely plausible for my client to have not met the victim that day. I suppose that makes sense. But why would Rupture do such a thing? What was he trying to accomplish sneaking into Udgy's room like that? Admittedly, I don't know the answer to that either. However, the real question is now about proof. What do you mean? If the victim really did enter through the bookcase passage, it's entirely possible he might have left behind some evidence of what he did. Did you call anything out of the ordinary about the bookcase that day? Was the passage already open by the time you used it? I don't remember. Everything that happened after I heard the thud is just kind of a blur. I can't actually remember any details about what happened next. You can't remember whether you pushed the bookcase open or not. If there was just some way to jog his memory. I ain't quite done. Huh? I totally forgot about Edgeworth.
Mr. Edgeworth, do you have a problem with the idea that the defense has proposed?
You know me, Your Honor. I always have problems with everyone's ideas. Naturally, Your Honor. Where are they going with this? The defense's claims that the victim entered the defendant's chambers while the trial was still in session that day, and then he used the bookcase passage to enter the crime scene. The problem is, of course, that he lacks a way to prove it. But if the passage was open at the time, then... Unfortunately, Mr. Justice. I can see with confidence the passage was closed. What? Let me ask you something, Mr. Justice. How closely did you examine the bookcase passage during your investigation? How closely? You know, now that I think about it, I didn't really examine it all that much. Your silence speaks volumes. If you had actually bothered to look at the bookcase in any great detail, you would have noticed that the bookcase has been torn off its hinges. What?
Interesting detail. The court record shall be updated with this information immediately.
And you couldn't have told us that at the start of the trial?
What exactly does this prove?
It's very simple, Your Honor. There's only one man in this case capable of ripping the bookcase off its hinges. One man who, in his testimony, proved he had the strength to do so. When he broke the lock on his own door. You mean... Naturally, I refer to Hercule Erie. Now then, I ask you, why would he need to rip the hinges off if the passage was open?
He wouldn't.
That's correct, Your Honor. We know for a fact that the passage was closed when the defendant used it now. There's no proof that anybody used the passage that day. Except for the one person. And that person is the defendant, Hercule Erie. No!
Order! Order, I say! This doesn't present a problem for the defense's case.
This is bad. This is really bad. I know I have to be on the right track, but it just makes me doubt my own case. What do I do? Should I try to fight this? Give in. I just want to see what happens if I click that. Yeah, I know I'm right about this. I just know it. The victim had to have entered the passage before the defendant arrived. But I don't have the evidence to dispute it. There's one other thing that the broken door hinges does prove. The defendant must have opened the passageway in a hurry.
Indeed, otherwise the defendant would have just opened it the normal way.
Precisely, Your Honor. And there's only one reason why the defendant would be in such a hurry at all. Oh no, I think I know what that is. Naturally, he was in a hurry to hide the body. Everything in this case points to the defendant. Everyone who entered the courthouse that day has an airtight alibi. All except for one person. Hercule Erie, it could only have been you. No!
I believe, at long last, the defense and prosecution have no more arguments to make.
I don't believe it. Is this really it? I'm trying my hardest, but I can't think of anything else to say. I'm just gonna make a save state and quickly go back and see what would have happened if I clicked fight back. Objection! Probably gonna lead to the same thing. Hold on, Mr. Edgeworth. The argument still doesn't prove that what I theorise isn't true. The victim still could have entered through the passageway before the defendant arrived that day. It's true this doesn't completely disprove the defense's theory. However, it does prove the defendant opened the passage in a hurry.
Indeed. Otherwise, the defendant would just open it the normal way.
Precisely, Your Honour. There's only one way the defendant would be in such a hurry at all. You know what that is. Hide the body. Yeah, so at least the same conclusion. If the jury decides on the verdict now, Jerry is sure to be found guilty.
Before we move to the verdict, I must ask one last time. Do the defense and prosecution have anything else to add?
The prosecution has nothing left to say, Your Honour.
Very well. from the defence.
Come on, Justice, think of something. Your Honor, the defence.
Objection.
10% now? Or... Please wait just a moment, Your Honor. I have something to say.
Jury, please control your outbursts.
Let me guess. He's going to remember that he actually did activate the bookcase passage that day, which means whoever ripped it off his hinges, probably using this strong magnetic pole, if they're metal hinges, somehow I think that could work, maybe. Whoever did that was someone who did that after Hercule. Now, my current theory is that I mean, he found the body. He got into a trap that someone, I'm thinking Aiden Gambit at the moment, set up in advance, and then I know if it was Aiden Gambit, he did something while nobody else was looking after the scream when they went to the crime scene, and he might have even killed the victim then. I don't know how exactly, but or the victim was already dead from the trap and he covered up the crime afterwards, like a remote murder.
Jury, please control your outbursts.
Please, Your Honor, just listen to me. I know who it is.
You know who what is?
Who else? The murderer. I know who murdered Corey Rupture.
You!
No. What? This is interesting. Is he going to say Aiden Gambit, maybe?
Jury, this is a serious claim you're making. Why'd you not tell the court about this sooner?
I didn't think anybody would believe me, Your Honor. But I can't stay silent, not when my life is on the line.
This is preposterous. You can't expect us to believe.
Miss Edgeworth, it's our job to hear out every witness, no matter what. My client must be allowed to speak.
You see, Mr. Justice,
It was actually me the whole time. I retract that previous statement, Your Honor.
I cannot let him make a mockery of this courtroom.
I think I might have skipped one of Edgeworth's piece of dialogue there by accident. You all have to read it, I'll have to read it later. Wait, does Edgeworth already know who's going to indict? I have a bad feeling about this.
Objection overruled, Mr. Edgeworth. Defense is correct. It's our duty to hear out every witness. Jury, you will give your testimony to this court at once.
Oh, never mind. It's not. He's not going to accuse Aiden Gambit. He's going to say, it was ghosts. For about a week I've been hearing strange noises coming from Reggie's chambers. The noises happen late in the night, long after Reggie has already left the building. There's no other explanation. It has to be the ghosts that haunt the halls of this courthouse. I had a paranormal investigator to search that room, but even he doesn't believe me. This guy, I'm guessing. I was worried the ghost got Reggie. That's why I was in such a hurry to open the passage. Oh no. Oh, everyone's gonna. Oh man. But what? Why isn't anyone saying anything? Well, now I know why Edgeworth was able to predict who would indict. In truth, I probably should have seen it coming too. Yeah, I should have.
Your Honor, this man is making a mockery of this court. To go as far as to indict a ghost. Indeed, it is rather ridiculous.
I'm overruling you, Judge, because I'm the judge here. I'm telling you, boy, Ghost did this crime, I know it. Why would anyone believe me? Could it possibly be because you're stark raving mad? You're right, I demand this testimony be stricken from the record. Mr. Justice, what are your thoughts? It's true that Judge Aries' testimony has more holes than Swiss cheese. But I can't just give up. This could be my last chance. You're right, the defense asserts this right to a cross-examination. The testimony is just as valid as any other. Mr. Justice, please don't feed into this man's delusions. The defense means to assert its right to a cross-examination, then we must oblige. Though I cannot say I envy you, Mr. Justice. It's my last chance. I've got to find something useful in that testimony. I've really got to dig deep to find the truth. Real quick, because I did miss that title hook box. I know you've already read it. I just want to, it does this sometimes when you load a save. It just feels the whole thing.
Objection.
Oh, this is all he said. This is preposterous. You can't expect us to believe. Oh no, it's the next one. Mr. Justice, surely you already know what he's going to say. So that's what he said. Anyway. Let's just do a little bit of pressing. What kind of strange noises are you hearing? It's a bit hard to describe in truth. It sounds like a consistent shifting sound, like something's moving around. Shuffling sound? Yeah, a very loud one too. It's always distracting me while I'm trying to do my paperwork. But when a real ghost make no sounds at all? What do you mean? Well, for the sake of playing devil's advocate, and not because I believe in ghosts, which I don't. Let's assume for a second the ghosts really are causing those noises. Ghosts are incorporeal, right? That's how the legends go. Have you never heard of poltergeist, Apollo? How then would a ghost be able to make shuffling noises? It's not like they need to walk or anything like that. They can just go through walls. It's a conspiracy, I tell you! Right, gotta remember those famous ghost conspiracies. Look, I don't know how they do it, okay? All I know is I've been hearing spooky noises from next door for the past week. But when I check out Udgy's chambers, there's nobody there. It really does sound like something out of a cheesy horror film. I really do not wish to be one to point out the obvious, but I'd wager that it's merely your mind playing tricks on you. I'm not delusional if that's what you're insinuating, boy. And yet you're claiming a ghost committed a murder with a straight face. I know what I've been hearing for the past few nights. If you put anybody in me chambers during the night, you'd hear the same thing. You might want to try telling that to Detective Sky. She was investigating far into the night yesterday. She has heard no such noises coming from the crime scene. It's a conspiracy, I tell you! You already said that. Still, I do wonder what it is that Judge Aries has actually been hearing. And why the noises suddenly stopped after the murder. Because they were made by this guy? In any event, I know for certain it couldn't be Udgy making those noises. How late into the night are you hearing these noises? Well, I don't really pay attention to the time when I stay late. I'm usually a bit preoccupied with other affairs. Hasn't sounded ominous at all. However, if I was to make a guess, I'd say it's around 7 PM when I start hearing those noises. That is fairly late. Do you have any suspicions about who's causing the noises? Have you not been listening to me, boy? It was ghosts. I meant aside from that. Nobody else really comes to mind. I've usually been all alone when I start to hear the noises in the night. Even the courthouse's janitors have usually clocked out by that point. In other words, nobody else would have been around to make those noises. Or want to back up your story that such noises even exist to begin with. Do you want to come to my office late at night, boy? I'll verify my story pretty quickly if you do. You'll give you nightmares for weeks. I believe I'll pass on that offer. What's important is what you can prove now. Ugh. Hearing mysterious noises in the middle of the night when everyone else is gone. Is it truly a coincidence that nobody is able to back up Jujiri's story? Or is it point to something far more sinister?
In any event, it's clear that the defendant cannot back up his claims. We can't reach a conclusion until more definitive proof is found.
Wait just a moment, Your Honor. Hear me out. I know who's responsible, just let me explain. I'm fairly certain there are much better explanations than that, Judge Aaron. What other explanations could there be? I'm telling you, I heard and seen the signs. There are ghosts here. You keep saying there are signs pointing to the supernatural activity. Yet, outside of easily explained noises, you have yet to actually tell us what they are. Oh yeah, well, just the other day, my sandwich went missing from my desk when I went to the bathroom. And then the day after that, the light started flickering off. And then, after that, a bucket of water was suddenly placed in my door frame. How do you explain all that if it's not ghosts? Well, for starters, the sandwich was probably because the janitor got hungry. The lights are likely due to faulty wiring.
And the bucket of water is likely because someone just doesn't like you.
Lies, all lies. Everyone likes me. What does it take to bring this guy back down to reality? Well, let's think about it from your perspective then. What purpose would a ghost fulfill by haunting you in particular? Isn't it obvious? It's because I'm onto them. Onto what exactly? Their existence, boy. They don't want anyone to know. They want to stay in the shadows for all eternity, but I've known about them for a while. They must be out to take their revenge on me. Oh, brother. I've had absolutely enough of this foolishness. Ghosts don't exist. Why am I the only one who sees? Why will none of you listen?
Jujiri, control yourself. In any event, I do not believe the pressing this point will get us anywhere. Let's move on.
That's something we can both agree on, Your Honor. You hired an investigator? Not just any investigator, a paranormal investigator. I want to make sure I got the right person for the right job. I think the main thing is that you hired someone to look into a judge's chambers. You know, without his permission. Well, about that. Indeed, what exactly do they call an action like that again? Ah, yes. Breaking and entering. Hang on, it's not like that at all. I wasn't trying to do anything illegal. I was trying to protect him. Trying to protect him? What would you do if you thought a ghost was targeting your best friend? Would you just sit around and wait for something to happen? No. You go out there and you try and do something about it. If I genuinely believe the ghost was after someone, I'd be talking to some men in lab coats. Look, sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands. I wasn't going to let anything bad happen towards you. I swore on it. Of course, in the end, it didn't matter anyways. The quack turned me down, saying to my face the ghosts aren't real. What kind of paranormal investigator goes around saying stuff like that? I'm guessing it's from the surprising amount of integrity. Other than that, all one looking for a change of career. Well, he's going to need a new one if he keeps saying things like that. A paranormal investigator who doesn't believe in ghosts? I wonder if that person is closer than we think. Yup. We have to pull the jury on that one. That person be able to shed some light on the situation. In any case, I believe we must move on from this. Please continue your testimony, defendant. So, you didn't know that he was overseeing a trial at the time? I can't really say I did, no. As a judge, my schedule is rather busy between trials and paperwork. I can't go and get myself preoccupied with other judges' schedules. However, I'd like to believe that still wouldn't have changed anything. Oh, why not? Let's imagine a scenario where you're in your dinky lawyer's office. The age isn't that small. Imagine you're working on paperwork for one of your previous trials, then all of a sudden, wham! You hear a loud noise come from the next office over. What do you do in that situation? I think I'd be compelled to check it out. Precisely. Still, I don't think I'd go so far as to rip the door off its hinges. Okay, maybe I'd be a bit calmer if I knew Audrey was safe. But I'd still be absolutely sure that ghosts are at work. That's your go-to for everything, is it? Soda machine's busted. Guess it must be ghosts. Of course, it doesn't really matter what you say your reasons were that day. I don't know what your excuse is, it all leads back to the same conclusion. The only one with the opportunity to kill Corey Rupture was you. I swear I didn't see Rupture at all that day. He didn't show up to court and then I found him dead. And so his theory of how it happened is clearly wrong. There must be some way to prove what really happened. No matter how much we tell him that what he claims is impossible, the jury keeps sticking to the same story no matter what. Unfortunately, all it's doing is making him look completely insane. Trying to convince him of what really happened will take a lot of doing. It's definitely not something I'll be able to do on my own. Heck, even if I had someone's help, it still might be impossible to change his mind. Probably this guy. However, it might help to open up a new possibility. And that new possibility might just give me an opening. So, yeah, that about does it for today's episode. Next time, we're going to poll the jury on all these statements, and then probably that paranormal one will be the one that breaks the case open for us. So yeah, see you in the next episode.